I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, everybody. Welcome, all my garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people to the Let's Get Growing Sunday edition. And this just happens to be our third Sunday of the month. The third Sunday of the month. I have joining with me our good friend Mark Boucher-Colbert, better known as NBC. Joining with me today as a co-host for our monthly gardening book club. And we've got an exciting book club today. A little bit later on in the show, we've got joining with us Ciscoe Morris, Pacific Northwest most adored gardener for sure, joining with us today to talk all about his book, Ooh La La. Ooh La La is full of great stories and helpful tips and garden wisdom from Ciscoe Morris. And for both Mark and I, Ciscoe Morris is a huge treat, and a big, huge treat for all of you who haven't got to meet Ciscoe yet. So stay tuned, definitely a little bit later on the show to talk about Ciscoe and his great book. Here to show you one more time, his book, Ooh La La. That's what we're reviewing today. And it's just been a really fun read. I'm excited about talking with Mark all about that coming up here in a little bit on the show. But if you all are here joining with us right now at the top of the show, definitely hit that thumbs up. Click the like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Hit that bell notification right next to the subscribe button too, because that will let you know and notify, make sure that you know that we've got upcoming videos and live streams. You won't want to miss out on any of our Let's Get Growing show guests that we have on our show, especially coming up for the rest of this season. We've got lots of great guests coming up. So definitely subscribe. Share as well too. If you're a regular viewer already and you know what great show we have already, make sure you're sharing with all of your garden friends and your garden groups or other garden live streams you might be out there attending and checking out. Make sure that you're letting everybody know that we've got a great one right over here with some of the gardening community's greatest gardeners right here on the Let's Get Growing show. So definitely do that. And also here at the top of the show, we always like to give a big, huge shout out to all of our replay watchers, all of you watching on the replay. Thank you so much for catching up with us when you've got time. We are a live show, so it's really awesome to be able to have this available as a regular video so that everybody can watch after the live stream is over when you have your own time. So if you are watching us on the live or the live stream replay, definitely get down below into the comments and let me know that you are here. Let me know what you've got growing on. Let me know if you got any comments or suggestions or any guests that you might like to see on the show. I would definitely love to hear from you, even if you're just saying hi. Get into the comments there. Also, another thing too, though, is about commenting and all of that too, is that I love to make sure that I'm also letting everybody know to get out there and go visit some of our guests on their social media or their YouTube channels and hit up some of their posts or videos and leave some comments over there as well too for them and show some support for them coming and visiting with us on our show. It's really great when all of you go out there and do that and let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. So that's always really awesome to do. To not only leave comments here for us, but also to jump in and leave some comments for our guests on their social medias. Also, really important too, this is a live stream. So if you have any questions or comments while you are here in the live stream, definitely jump into the comment section there and ask it. We just might feature it on the show. We've got a really great guest today, so definitely jump in with some questions if you have later on as well too. We'd love to hear them, and maybe we'll just be able to pop them into our conversation. So definitely do that for sure. All right. Let's see who we got joining with us today. Real quick too. Also, yeah, for sure. Right off the top of the bat, we've got our great facilitator, as we talked about yesterday, because Jay Dixon, if anybody hasn't got to meet our great facilitator, Jay Dixon, we did kind of a impromptu share the show link with everybody yesterday on the show, and our one volunteer to come and join with me and have a conversation yesterday was Jay Dixon, our facilitator. So we all got to meet Jay. Jay's been in our comment section for probably almost since we got started, pretty much just a little shortly after we got started, but she's been in there leaving just tons of great links as we're talking and conversating about different things. She drops links into that comment section there. This is just something that we're so fortunate to have, unlike so many other live streams out there. Jay does do some facilitating of other live streams, but what she does is very, very unique. And we kind of talked about that and talked about why and what her reasoning is behind doing all that sort of work for channels like ours here. And it's just a really great conversation. I really wasn't expecting it when it came down to it, but it made for a really, really awesome show yesterday. So definitely go back to yesterday's show if you haven't got to meet Jay yet, and go check out that conversation and get to meet our wonderful, wonderful facilitator here on the show. Thank you again so much for joining us yesterday, Jay, and for everything that you do for our show. Thank you so much. We got Serena joining with us. Serena, thank you so much for being here with us. Let's see here. We got Rick joining us all the way down from down under in Australia. Nice and bright and early on a what would be a Monday morning for Rick. But thank you so much, Rick, for getting up early and joining with us here. We've got Michelle W. Awesome. Thank you. Fellow 10 here. Looking forward to this show. Let the fun begin. Jalapeno. This inside jokes for us fellow 10s that I'm really glad to see as I put out a promotion for the show, because we're interviewing Ciscoe Morris today out on my my other community. I hang out with one of my favorite podcasts. TBTL is the name of the podcast out there, and they're a great fun couple of guys, Luke and Andrew, who do a great daily podcast, and they've been doing it for many, many years. They're working on 5,000 episodes sometime here in the next year or two, and just been around a long time. Really fun podcast, and also another really great community. Michelle, thank you so much for coming over here and supporting us here at Let's Get Growing and checking out our interview with Ciscoe Morris. And stick around too. Also, that reminds me as well, because that's one thing I haven't mentioned yet so far, is that at the end of the show, we're going to announce next month's selection for the monthly book club. And you'll want to stick around for that too, because we're going to be giving away a copy of that book. So you want to hang on towards the end of the show. We're going to give away a copy of our book that we'll announce at the end of the show too. We've got Jersey Girl joining with us. Thank you so much here for joining with us on this show. It's so great to have you back here again, Jersey. Awesome to see you. LP, back at it. Awesome. It was great to have you with us yesterday as well too, everybody. Again, go back and check out that conversation. It was really, really great conversation with Jay. Let's see. Yay, Jay. Yes, absolutely. Oh, and Jay already added, like I said, that was one of the questions I had for Jay yesterday. It was like, whenever I'm talking about something, I'm just so surprised how quickly she gets those links into the chat box. Just really something that's really great, again, too, as facilitating a live stream like that. And already there's a TBTL link for everybody to go check out that podcast there. Just one of my favorites. And if you see actually, I gotta go this way. Right over my shoulder here, there's a little thing that says 10 too. That's my little 10 little what do you call that, Easter egg in the background there. Anyways, thank you all so much for joining with me today. It is just really great to have you all here. We've got a lot going on. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick here about kind of what's going on around in the garden, though, or garden show here. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the garden. I grow out of Southern Oregon. I am in the Rogue Valley in Southern Oregon here. And one of the things that we're experiencing right now are a lot of wildfires that are happening in the area right now. In fact, this one here was a wildfire that popped up I'd say a week and a half or so ago. This one was called Salt Creek Fire. And that peak there, that little mountain peak hill or whatever is kind of sits right in the center of our Rogue Valley. And it's kind of a really cool peak. You can go hike around the top of it and see all around the valley and everything. It's one of our favorite things to do, especially with visitors, us locals here in the area, to take them and show them around the areas, to take them up to Roxy Ann there. But look at that. I mean, that peak is really a nice sized peak too. And that fire is huge. And it's one of many different fires. In fact, right now, we're experiencing a lot of thunderstorms and lightning. I mean, last night it was just pop, 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 pop all over the place around here, down here. And so obviously this morning I woke up to a lot of news about a lot more fires that were that the firefighters here locally are out trying to fight, that got started overnight, and they're still discovering them too. But what does that mean? And what does that mean for our gardens, though, too? Because yesterday for us as well, it was a really, really smoky day in the valley because of all of that, all of those fires, the smoke, depending on where the wind's blowing. Our valley's like a big old bowl. Sometimes it'll just blow it right in. And if you were up at the top of that peak on Roxy Ann right there, you could look down into the valley as a bowl, and it almost looked like a bowl of cereal with just milk. You know, if you would look at it sometimes with how the smoke just sits right in on us. And so that's over the last several years, we got used to this being the case each and every summer, has gotten us worried about kind of what does the smoke mean for our gardens, you know? And ultimately, as I've found and learned, and kind of what I've been giving advice to people here locally that I talk about and everything, is that the smoke really for the plants out there, you know, that's not really going to be as bothersome as it is for us. We're definitely, if you're going to be out there watering, you're going to be out on a really, it's a thick, smoky day, and the air is hazardous. So you're going to want to be out there with the best type of a particle mask as you can, because this is what really is the problem with smoke when we're dealing with it, is the fact that smoke is so full of these just micro particles. And sometimes, and it depends on the fire and how close the fire is to you, some of those particles can get pretty good size too, where you can even see them coming down like snow as it's kind of settling onto everything. And so that's really, really the issue when it comes down to the smoke in our area for our gardens. And again too, I'll be interested to see what maybe Mark will say here in a minute, and then later on here when we get Ciscoe join with us, maybe I'll ask him a little bit about it, because they're both Pacific Northwest gardeners as well too. And this is something we're starting to notice more and more each and every year. But for me, I find that really it's the particles. They're settling down like snow, and like I said, that's not good for us in our lungs. We're definitely going to want to get out there and get with a mask and all of that. But one of the things that we can do for our garden though too, in this time period when it's really starting to come down heavy and you've got a lot of smoke, is get out there with that hose. We're not just watering them to keep them hydrated in the hot weather, but we want to also kind of wash off those particles. I'll wash off all of that ash particles and those things from the smoke that are settling on the leaves of our plants, because that's going to just, that's going to build up, and it's going to build up, and it's going to start clogging up, I'm trying to use a stoma. I have to ask exactly what it is, but they got little plants got little pores too, and it can clog those things up and start causing your leaves to start yellowing off and dying if that stuff gets thick enough. So it's a good idea. Get out there and wash those plants, which is a really, really great idea. Oh my, we ran it. Oh, yep. I've got, this doesn't happen very often, but it looks like George has joined the studio. So it looks like he's knocking the camera around. I apologize. He's my cat, and he's usually outside right now. But I was running a little late as we were getting started with the show, and he has to have his morning snack. So he comes in for his morning snack, and he's got to have it. And I forgot to close the door behind him. And so he's in here, so maybe he might cause a little trouble, but we'll deal with it. He'll be just fine. He can be a little noisy, so he might want to join the conversation every now and then as well, too. But just all a part of the fun that we have here on the Let's Get Growing show. So right on, right on. Let's get moving along here. I want to make sure checking in and seeing if we got anybody else joining with us here on the show too before we get going. Riverdale Gardens, thank you so much for joining with us today. Great to see you here. And let's see, I think that's good right now. Right on, right on. And Jay says, George jiggles the cameras. Yeah, exactly. He does. He's gnawing his claws actually into the carpet, which is right below the camera. So that's what's doing it. That's all right. We love our garden pets, and it's fun to have him around. Okay, let's get moving on here. We've got each and every Sunday joining with us is our good friend Mark Boucher-Colbert, MBC, we call him, and he's usually out in the gardens sharing with us a little bit of garden tidbits about what's going on and different advice and all of that sort of stuff for us. But here on the third Sunday of the month, Mark is also our co-host for our monthly book club, and so we get him for 2 segments today. So let's get Mark in here for the In the Garden segment and catch up with what's going on in his garden. All right, Mark. Awesome. Great to see you. It's awesome to have you here live with us for the third Sunday, our monthly gardening book club.
My gosh, and it's all about Ciscoe today, so this is like so exciting.
I know. Super good. And that's the thing I've been telling people as we've been running up to this show is that Mark and I both are major Ciscoe super fans. We're Pacific Northwest gardeners, and we've been lucky enough too, together even, to go and see Ciscoe talk a few different times at the Pacific Northwest Flower and Garden Show. Just what an amazing storyteller he is, huh?
I know. Last time we were there, I just remember we were both sitting in the same auditorium right next to each other, listening to Ciscoe, and we looked at each other. We thought we were in the middle of a comedy club or something. I mean, everyone's busting a gut, including us. Like, who is this guy? How's he doing this to 600, 700, 800 people? However many were there, I don't know.
I know. I was telling you, it's kind of like that saying when people talk about going to hockey. They went to a hockey game, or I went to a fight and a hockey game broke. Oh, however they say it. I was like, we went to a garden talk and a comedy show broke out.
Yes. And I'm expecting more of the same today, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Ciscoe is great, and I'm sure he's going to have all sorts of wonderful things to tell us here in just a little bit. But anyways, we're here to talk about what's growing on in the garden, Mark. One of the things that we love about having you on the show is, you got all these great, cool garden spaces that you get to grow in. You're a garden educator and teacher as well, teaching young kids about growing and gardening. So you've got gardens at a garden school, a rooftop garden for a restaurant. You've got your own home urban gardens and all that sort of stuff. So let's talk about a little bit what's growing on in your different garden spaces.
Well, I'd say the word of the day is fall. Even though we're really in the middle of the summer, I'm feeling the big shift toward fall. The planting is oriented toward that. Like I was just planting a bunch of really nice, healthy sized Brussels sprout transplants. I know Ciscoe's going to be excited about that.
Yes.
That's to the fore, but that's also exciting for us because that's a main for us, especially at our school garden. We run a farmer's market all year round, and the Brussels sprouts really give us an amazing source of food for the winter that we can harvest. So super delicious, the best time to harvest them. And, you really I started those probably at the end of May. I transplanted them once. I started them in small trays, transplanted them once into 4-inch pots, and now putting them in the field. So, that's coming up. I'm thinking about kale for the fall. I'm thinking about lettuce for the fall. So in the midst of all this summer stuff and trying to keep the tomatoes trellised and getting the beans all planted up and made sure the last planting of that's in and the basil harvested and all that, it's really about the fall. Wow, thinking about cover crops, thinking about the fall crops that are going in now. And the
Hmm.
garden, I always say this: the gardener's mind has got to be 1 or 2 seasons ahead. It's like you're experiencing this season, but you're really like somewhere you're ahead of the game too, because you just have
Yeah.
to be. It's all about the steps, the staging, the sequencing. So that's the gardener's game, really.
Yeah, yeah, we've really always got to be kind of a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to things and be thinking about those sort of stuff. I'm kind of almost at that stage myself too, as we're rolling towards mid and late July, start to think about a lot of even some of those seeds and things I'm going to start for cool weather crops again that I'm going to start growing in the garden spaces as well as we move towards fall. It may be nice and warm and hot out there, but over these next several weeks as we start these young starts, they're going to start maturing to where they're going to be ready to go out in the garden just as it starts to cool off towards fall. And it'll be kind of hopefully perfect timing just to have them, right ready to go into that cool weather.
It's a little bit of an iffy game and an iffy
Hmm.
prospect, because I've noticed our growing season has been extending as temperatures warm up.
Yep.
So it's warmer now. September, for example, can be a much warmer month than it used to be. It always was here in the Pacific Northwest, a pretty nice summery month, but it can get a lot hotter now, and then it can stay hot into October. So some of these crops like lettuces, they don't mind a little heat when they're young, but they really
Yep.
don't too much really
Hmm.
hot weather. Or if you're doing some fall peas, for example, or something like that, it gets tougher as it gets warmer and warmer later on. It's a kind of a trick, because you're playing both with temperature and with light. That's the other
Yep.
thing. I mean, even though it stays warmer later on, the light levels are decreasing, so you have to
Exactly.
contend with those
And
two
that's why
factors.
you're trying to get it a little ahead of time because you want to kind of keep up with the light a little bit, but then it can be a little warm and too hot. Lettuces, like you said, might mind a little bit, but one of those buggers that I love so much, but give us so much trouble when it comes to this is spinach.
Oh
Spinach
man,
will straight go to seed, right? Go to
yeah,
seed right from seed.
yeah.
I mean, right from seed, it'll come up and go straight to seed. And it's just one of those things. If it's too warm, it does not like that at all. So,
Yeah, it
and I
doesn't even
love spinach and it's always about making sure my timing's right when I do that too.
spinach is a tough character. Yeah, that's a tough customer.
It
Yeah.
sure is. It sure is.
And it points to the fact again that as gardeners, we're it's like we're in partnership with the forces of nature. Sometimes they seem like opponents to us, though, because it's just
Hmm.
like, of course, as we've made changes to the environment, things are becoming a little more oppositional, I would say. And so we have to just keep finding ways to try to bring the harmony back, and work as much as we can with the forces that are there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And again too, also is, these forces are constantly changing on us too.
Mm,
And it's this sense as we're moving and we're kind of heading towards the end of the summer, going to fall season. We're thinking about those things. It's tricky on both ends. And I'm finding even as I'm trying to gauge. I was just talking to someone yesterday about gauging when I'm planting things out for and around my last frost date. As we're at that transition from end of spring into summer. Is
hmm
it because of the way the climate is, whether the way things are? I mean, I could have planted my tomatoes out maybe at the end of March this year is how warm it's been for us down here, which is
Yeah.
really kind of and I never would have done that, never would think of doing that really. But I could have gotten away with a few weeks and maybe, and that's something we've been thinking a lot more over the last, couple of seasons and stuff too.
Yep. Yep.
And because of how that's changing and again, we're always trying to get just a little bit of ahead, in order to, for one, too, getting my tomatoes out. I mean, it's always really kind of a good deal to get ahead as you can, because once it starts getting hot, then we're
And
having trouble with tomato production.
sequence of plantings. Yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
I think we're all adjusting. We're having to make those adjustments to our
Yep,
whatever the
exactly.
internal planting calendar is. The calendar you've internalized from books, reading, garden clubs, experiences. We're all shifting it. It's like right and left shifting. Things can grow longer now, and you should get them going earlier. So, and
Yeah.
even brought this up on the show before, the zonal system is changing in the U.S. So we really are experiencing a shift that calls for different gardening practices. So we're going to have to live into that and see how that goes.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. There are lots of different things, but again, too, that's the fun of gardening. When it comes down to it, it's just the constant learning and getting the chance to do things a little different or learn something new. And it's just these environmental factors are throwing that, kind of forcing us into learning new things and new strategies and how to deal with that sort of stuff.
Well,
So
we were talking last time with Christy Wilhelmi and her book Garden Variety, and which is the novel about community gardens in LA, or
yeah,
a
yeah.
garden in LA. And for her, the dead season is midsummer because that's when it's so
Yep.
blistering hot, and then the rest of the year kind of comes alive. And there's a sense in which that's getting to be a little bit true here as we deal with things like you
Hmm.
say, smoke and just some incredible heat waves. I mean,
Yep.
we've had easy this summer in Portland. It hasn't been terribly hot, but looking around the whole rest of the country and around the world, really, it's just getting unbearably hot in some places during the summer. And so
Yeah.
this is going to put tremendous pressure on crops, and
Yep.
people start to carve out the summer maybe as more of the dead zone and start
Hmm.
to work the shoulder seasons a lot more.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of seems to be the case is that we're just kind of on at this time right now, and especially for us, the last couple of weeks have been in the hundreds.
Yeah.
So we're just on a hold pattern.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, can we keep everything alive, make sure everything stays wet?
Yes.
Again, as we were talking about, as I was leading up to this about the smoke. We're dealing with wildfires more so here in the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of us gardeners are dealing with a lot of this smoke, that's around and all that. And I was just going to ask you what you think about all of that as well, too, when it comes to caring for your garden.
Well, the one area where I've heard smoke as being a really major concern is the wine growers. So I think
Yeah.
that they're freaking out because it can, even though it as you say, like the particulate matter, we should be washing that off to
Hmm.
uh, uh, enhance
Help.
photosynthesis and all that sort of thing. And obviously the human hazards of being out in the garden. I'll say a bit more on that in a minute. But the smoke taint on the grapes apparently is really affecting the flavor of the wines, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I know that for myself, we've had a few smoke periods in Portland here, even, which is again like unheard of in the first decades when I was here. But especially in 2020, a few months into the pandemic, we had this terrible Labor Day fire that
Yeah.
coated Portland in thick smoke, AQI, air quality index of about 400 and something.
Ooh. Yeah.
Horrible. And I needed a full respirator. But there's been other days when I go out and the AQI, maybe the sun looks a little hazy, the AQI may be like 100 or something. You go out and I'm not immediately thinking about respirator because I'm not seeing the smoke necessarily. But
Hmm.
after an hour or two, I can feel like a hurt in my lungs. It does not feel
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
you should be checking these numbers. You should be looking at the conditions and take that stuff seriously because it will affect you long term. That stuff's not good as a gardener.
Yeah, definitely be thinking about yourself and your own lungs first before you're getting out there and worrying about and checking on the plants and all of that. It's kind of like they tell you on the airlines, right? You
Huh?
gotta you gotta grab that mask for yourself first, and you can't help anybody else if you're not able to breathe or whatever yourself. So it's the same thing. We got to be
Yeah.
thinking about our lungs before we get out there. But yeah, definitely, like I said, I think really the big issue is they're not worried about the smoke and the carbon and all the air quality stuff as far as that concern is concerned. Is the plants are concerned, it's that particulate really I think is going to really cause some issues with the plants in the long run. And I've seen it. They'll get particulate and I can see it heavy on there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
notice
Yeah.
some yellowing starting on the plants and or on the leaves, and then from where it goes from there. So it's
Well,
good to just
I'll
get that
tell you
washed off real
an
quick.
analogy. We have a mirror, a parabolic mirror stove at school. It's maybe about 3 feet wide,
Yeah.
and it focuses all the light at a point as a parabola does. And it's got a little burner grill section where you can put a pot or something and boil water with the sun's light. Or I've cooked hamburgers and various things. I do it with the kids.
Hmm.
Really
Yeah.
fun. But what I've noticed is if there's the slightest bit of dust or ash, like a couple of times when we've had some, dust and particulates in the air. It builds up, and then you actually lose power, the solar power. I know the same thing happens with solar panels too. If you don't keep those things totally clean, you lose power. So I can only imagine the same thing's going on a plant leaf. Like, it is actually losing the power to photosynthesize the more debris builds up on it.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of like a little analogy, right? You know, because literally I just wipe the thing with a clean cloth, and then the water starts boiling. It's like it's been prevented from doing it just by all the dust, which doesn't even look like a really thick layer of dust. So
yeah, exactly. All right, Mark. I guess you know what? It's about that time, right?
Are we gonna this dream of interviewing Ciscoe Morris right now?
Yeah. We'll take a real quick break here, and we'll be right back, and we'll get our monthly gardening book club started. Ooh la la! Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right, Mark. It's time for the monthly gardening book club. What an awesome, great fun book club we've been having so far this year. We've had lots of great books so far. We've talked about foraging in the wild without dying. We've gotten into some great gardening science. Yep. We've even gotten into some gardening fiction with Christy Wilhelmi, as you mentioned in the last segment there too, in her book Garden Variety. And now we're just getting into just some fun, humorous, anecdotes and tips and garden wisdom from one of our favorite gardeners from the Pacific Northwest, Ciscoe Morris.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is great stuff. I mean, yeah, it's so many stories, so much humor, so much fun, but so much garden experience in there too. I was underlining and making notes, all kinds of pruning. You know, I got so many pruning tips from this book, and just we'll talk about understanding of IPM, integrated pest management.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Ciscoe's a leader in that, and just a lifetime gardener, a whole life of professional gardening is being packed into a book like this. So it's just a rich experience to read it.
Yeah, I love it. Again, too, talk about the last book, we got into this fiction and it's storytelling in a sense. And that was one of the great things about what Christy was able to do with her book, was tying in all of this garden information and tips and things into this story that she was telling through that book. And this book is just a ton of that same sort of thing, but just real life stories from a real life gardener who's been experiencing this stuff forever. And like you said, just a real, and I think that's something I really want to dig into a lot too today, is really talking about Ciscoe's leadership in organic gardening practices and things like that too, coming from a generation where, that really wasn't the case, and being able to become a leader to kind of really lead our generations into, taking that forward. So that's going to be something really great to talk about. So without further ado, I think we've made him hold on for as long as we possibly can here. So Ciscoe's been waiting in the the wings here. Let's go ahead and get him onto the show. Now I've got to do one thing here real quick. Click that and bring him on there. Ciscoe.
Oh la la.
Awesome.
Ciscoe, I
Thank
hope
you
you
so much.
sprouts today, because we're going to really put you to work. So yeah, I hope you're feeling really fortified.
Hey, I ate my Brussels sprouts. I'm ready for anything.
Excellent. Awesome, Ciscoe.
Well, Ciscoe, so I'm going to start with I loved your book, by the way, and I would read parts of it out loud to my wife after dinner, like each night. I'm like, oh my God, you got to listen to this. So we'd read the little stories as little after dinner dessert almost. So just an amazing book. But for people who haven't, we encourage a lot of people to come on the show, even if we say, hey, you don't have to read the book, just come on and listen to what's going on. So I'm going to just say some words to describe your book. And then if you want to go off on any of those, you could just go off. So to me, this is a Ciscoe list of this Oh La La book. We got stories, we got dogs, we got trees, we got gardens, we got rare and exotic plants, we got Mary, we got Brussels sprouts, we got travel, we got cookies, and we have a number of unique Ciscoe expressions like Tweedle, Dim Dim, and El Kabatsky. So that's a kind of a short list.
One of my favorites.
So I'm going to let you take it from there, Ciscoe. You just, any of those you want to run with, you go.
Well, I think the fun thing for me in writing this book was that, my very first book was called Ask Ciscoe. That book was the #1 selling garden book in the United States for a while, which blew my mind. And you don't get rich writing a book, though, because you do get paid to write it. But I just got my last royalty check for the first book, $4.14. I'm going to have to frame that thing,
Yeah.
But, so after writing that book, the publishers wanted me to write the same book again with new questions. I did not want to do that. That would have been terrible. So we negotiated like mad. They finally let me write this book of short stories about my gardening experiences. And I'm hoping people laugh hard when they're reading them, because I laughed hard when I wrote them. That's all I know.
Well, it certainly had that effect on me. My God, it was like so many things are just like sometimes you wait. So for people who haven't read the book, it's like you said, a series of short stories. Sometimes they're 2 pages, sometimes maybe no more than 8 pages long each one. They all have really fun, clever titles. And sometimes you don't deliver the punchline till the last line. Like you're reading along and then all of a sudden, boom, there it comes at the end, and just double dose laughter. So it's really great.
Yeah, there's some real favorites in there. I think one of my favorite stories ever was when I gave a garden talk for the Vashon Island Garden Club, I think. But they had a lot of people there, and they had me meet this woman who was in her 90s. And they said she's the best gardener in the club. She knows how to do anything. And I'll never forget, because, I apologize to anyone who loves crows, but crows can drive me nuts at times. They can really cause a lot of trouble. They stick pieces. My neighbor feeds the crows whole pieces of bread, whole slices of bread, and I find them in my fountain all the time.
Oh God!
So one of the people at this talk raised their hand and goes, how can I get crows to get out of my garden, And I was a director for grounds care at Seattle University for years. And at about 4 p.m, the whole sky would turn black. All these crows would come to Seattle U. They'd hang out for a while, get into the garbage can, spread garbage all over. The whole sky would turn black. They'd be digging around the edges of the gardens, making a mess, and then they'd all take off and go to the Bothell campus for the University of Washington, which was up north of Seattle U. And I told the woman, I have no idea how you can get crows to leave your garden, you know. And she said they were eating some of her songbirds, babies and stuff.
Oh.
I said, I'm sorry, I don't know. The 93-year-old woman raises her hand, you know, and I go, yes. And she goes, I know how to get rid of crows. I go, well, how do you do it? She goes, well, you got to shoot one.
Oh, yes.
I said, isn't it illegal to shoot crows? She goes, I just shoot one. Nobody tells, you know. I said, well, who shoots it? She goes, don't give me lips, Sonny. I'm a crack shot, you know. So, okay. So she said, you take the crow, and I've actually tested this a little. You take the crow and you throw it out in the area where the crows are hanging out. All the crows from miles around come, have a big funeral for that dead crow. So they're hopping around this crow and everything. She said they stay about 15, 20 minutes. Boom, they fly away. She said they don't come back for 3 months. And so I said, yeah, but then you go out and shoot another crow? She goes, no, you dummy. You throw the crow in the freezer, you know. And get this,
Oh my God.
Get this, later on at Seattle U, after this happened, because I used to direct the grounds care at Seattle University. I'm sitting in my office. One of my gardeners comes in that's out working on the campus. And I see him grab a shovel and I go, what's up? You know, and he goes, a crow just landed on one of the electric wires. There wasn't any insulation up there. He said it got fried. And so I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to go bury it. I said, I want that crow. So I ran out and found the crow. It had a really surprised look on its face. I took that crow, threw it in that area where all the crows hung out at Seattle U. Lo and behold, they came, had a great big funeral for the crow. Foop, they flew away. They didn't come back for about 3 months. And by the way, I did not throw the crow in the freezers. But those are the fun kind of things that happen when you're a gardener or just experiencing life that are so fun.
Oh my gosh.
That's so great. That's so great. Jay says that would be attempted murder, i.e. a group of crows.
All right.
That is attempted murder, I'll tell you what.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's one of the great things about your book, Ciscoe, though, too, is that, you know, there's a lot of like, you know, just kind of old garden, you know, strategies and techniques and things that are out there. And I think it's kind of fun listening to the different stories throughout your book where you're literally experimenting and trying with all of this sort of different stuff over the years. I'm sure you've tried lots and lots of crazy stuff. So besides the crow, are there any other like really silly or crazy experiments that you could think of that you've tried in the garden?
Well, one of the most interesting experiments we tried was when we decided to go to IPM. You know, when I started at Seattle U, it was the first day of spring, 1978.
Wow.
And which is kind of fun. And I'd only been working there for about a week. And I go out on the campus, and here's this guy spraying all the trees on campus. And he had this really weird sprayer. It had 2 great big, like 50-gallon drums on a trailer, and he had a siphon in it. And he's blasting the trees with diazinon, a pretty powerful poison.
Yeah.
Noon on a school day, people are walking under these trees, stuff
God.
dripping down in their coffee cups. I ran up to the guy and I said, who the heck are you? And why are you spraying my trees? You know, he goes, I'm Ed the painter. I do all the spraying here. You know?
Ed the painter.
I said, what are you trying to kill? And he goes, what difference does it make? The only good bug is a dead bug.
Right.
So, oh my God. So I got it. So he didn't spray anymore. You know, I had an old priest was kind of the boss. And even though I only saw him once every 2 months. He'd just come in and say, how's it going, you know? So basically, I was running the department right from the beginning. Later on, I got put in charge. But so I was trying to figure out what to do. The problem at the campus was that when you got a guy out there killing every bug and every tree, and we found a lot of dead birds too. I'll tell you, it wasn't good. The thing is, he killed all the good bugs. So the bad bugs had nobody eat them, keep them under control. The populations grew to so high, you couldn't believe it. Students, the birch trees, we had these European white birch trees that got so full of aphids. When a student would walk underneath, they got a free dippity-doo treatment. This honeydew was just pouring down. And so I was thinking I'd release lady beetles to start the whole IPM program, because I'd gone to some training. I was a master gardener, and they were trying to teach farmers how to use this integrated pest management, where the last choice, you know, you could look at different ways to deal with pests, mechanical, you know, El Kabatsky pest control. That's where you insert the insect between thumb and forefinger, and you have to yell El Kabatsky as you squish for the full effect, you know. So you could do mechanical controls. You know, you could try blasting them off with water. Then you could try something organic. And they, in those days, they said, look, if you got it, you could use a pesticide, but it's got to be the absolute last choice. And I didn't want to do the pesticides. So I thought I was going to release lady beetles. The problem with ladybugs is that they go through a metabolic change in fall. And so they eat bugs like crazy, but instead of forming, you know, muscle or anything, they form fatty oils in the fall. It's antifreeze. They fly out to the woods or the mountains and find a spot under a log or something, send out a pheromone, tell all their buddies, come out and hang out with me for the winter. And it's kind of funny, because the lady beetles that get there first, they're in this big warm ball of lady beetles. The guys that get there last, they freeze their little wings off. You know, they're like, why did I procrastinate? But so the guys that sell those things to us, they basically just scoop them up, keep them in the cooler, sell them to us. These things are still full of fatty oils. So the last thing they want to do is eat. They have to get exercise. They don't do push-ups and sit-ups and jumpy jacks. They fly. So they're going to fly 2 to 10 miles and go eat somebody else's aphids after you put them out in your garden. So I knew that wasn't going to work. Anyway, I got called in by the vice president at the university. And he basically said, you know, this campus is going to hell. I put you in charge. Now the campus is just, students are having dippity-doo in their hair. And as he was talking, believe it or not, I saw 2 or 3 aphids walking around. Well-coiffured hair. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. He goes, what are you going to do about this? And I told him, I said, I'm going to bring good bugs to eat the bad bugs. And he's like, we are infested with bugs, and this idiot is going to bring more, you know. It's like, he was like, what are you talking about? And I, you know, at that time, I thought I was going to bring ladybugs. I hadn't done enough research to find out it wasn't going to work. So, but we argued for about a half hour in there, and I told him, look, you don't, this campus is toxic, you know, it's got so many chemicals on it, the weed and feed that's being used, everything. So he said, if you could figure out some way to do this, and you can get the student government to go along with it, I'll let you do it. So I just so happens I learned about lace wings. There are native lace wings in like our whole area. but the ones you have to buy come from California. You know why they do that? Is because then you got to buy new ones every year, you know. But I met a guy at a party. He was a bug broker. And basically, he told me, I can get you the lace wings. So just so people know what these are. So they're about a half-inch long, maybe a little less. And they have these lacy wings. They hold over their back like a church roof. And but what they do is it's really cool to watch this. They land on a leaf and their hinder hits the leaf, some sticky stuff comes out. Whoop! She picks up her hinder and there's a string. She lays an egg on the end of the string. And I've seen this a number of times. Now, why does she lay every egg on the end of a string like that? Well, one thing is when you've got hundreds of aphids in the trees, the ants go up there and they feed on the honeydew that comes out of the aphids. Ants are really tough. I've seen them kill lady beetle larvae that are trying to get to the aphids. So by laying each egg on the end of a string, the predators can't find them. But there's something else. The little larvae that hatch out of these are so hungry. They would just gobble each other up the minute they hatch if they could get at each other. Instead, they come zooming down the string. They got these great big feeding tube jaws in the front of their mouth. These little larvae, they move really fast. They come down the string. They're looking for an aphid. As soon as they see an aphid, they pounce on it. They stick those feeding tubes into the aphid, pick it up, and suck the juice out of it like a living milkshake. The aphid, it's so cool.
Love it.
See. Here's the coolest part. Instead of just taking that aphid body, because there's a body still stuck in its jaws, and throwing it away, they throw it on their back. They got sticky stuff on their back. I think it's bug poop, but I'm not sure. They throw the aphid on their back. Pretty soon they catch another aphid, throw it on their back. Pretty soon they got 3 or 4 aphids sitting on their back. The ants don't see the lacewing larva sneaking right by to go eat more aphids. They seem to look at them and go, what are those aphids doing sitting on top of each other like that? They're so effective at wiping out the aphids. So I ended up, the problem was in spring, I told my second in command at Seattle I had to go down to Oregon. I was going to Yachats for a little vacation with my wife. And I asked my second in command, keep an eye on these trees. If you see those aphids coming, because they're coming for sure, call this guy and get these lacewings. So I get back. I go to work on a Monday. I look in the trees. Honeydew hits me right in the face. There's aphids all over. The guy I told to keep an eye on it said, I swear they weren't there Friday. So I don't know, but so aphids actually lay eggs in fall. They can have babies anytime they want, all summer long. They only have female, but in fall, they have male and female babies. Those mate and those lay eggs in the trees. So those that all hatched, I called the guy to get the lace wings that I'm going to order. And he goes, it takes me 2 or 3 weeks to get them. He goes, by then you're going to have honeydew all over the campus. You're going to get fired. I'm like, oh man. So I go, well, what can I do? And he goes, well, I got a deal for you. He said, I bought a whole bunch of them for, I think it was the Seattle City Zoo was going to do this. Then they chickened out because they thought people wouldn't like having all these bugs around. So he said, I've got 22,000 lacewing eggs here that I need to get rid of. So I said what all managers say, will you give me a discount?
Yeah.
He said, okay. So he brought them over. All my gardeners and I got together, and they came in little pin boxes that are, they're about this, I don't know, the size of my hand. And we opened up the first one. These eggs, that he'd had them too long, they're starting to hatch in there. They were gobbling each other the speed of light. So
Oh
I
my.
just went, come on, let's go.
Gotta
our
get it going.
gardeners. We were out there. I was ground control. I was pouring in some of the eggs in each of these little Dixie cups we had. We'd poke holes in the bottom so no rain would, drown them or anything.
Yeah.
But they were already running out like crazy. And so my gardeners were climbing up the trees, stapling them up in the trees and putting a leaf with some aphids in there. And the problem was, first of all, the gardeners climbing the trees were getting covered with honeydew. They're like, oh, yuck, this is horrible. And I'm going, come on, it's worth it. The other things, these things started biting us. Now, when they're that little, bites, it hurts when they bite you, but they're nothing. You don't get a bump, nothing. But when they get about a half inch, these larvae, they have a bite like you've never seen. I have a friend who got a bite for 3 weeks. He had a big bump.
Whoa.
Luckily, I never got a report of anyone getting bit at Seattle University. I was terrified.
Right.
But so we released these things in the trees. It took us about 2 days. I couldn't even sleep at night thinking about these things gobbling each other up in the fridge, And we got them all out into the trees. And at first, all I saw was ants in the trees, aphids. I couldn't find any of the little lacewing larvae. Then about the end of the first week, I started seeing the lacewing larvae in their clever disguises, sneaking by the ants, nailing aphids left and right. At the end of I'd say the third week, the aphid population just dropped like you couldn't believe. There still were aphids up there, but that was all right with me because you got to have some harmful insects to have beneficials, have something to eat. And everywhere I went, I would, this is back in the days when you had film canisters, and I'd punch holes in those film canisters. If I went to a friend's house, they had lady beetle larvae because they won't fly away. I'd grab some. I'd say, can I have some of these? And I'd release them at Seattle U. Well, by the end of summer, we never got one complaint about honeydew falling on anyone. And there were so many ladybugs on campus. Whole sides of buildings were covered with lady beetle cocoons.
Wow.
The painters hated me because not only did I make it so Ed the painter couldn't spray bugs anymore, they couldn't paint the buildings.
Either. Yes. That is
wow, victory.
Program. It was so cool.
No, real quick, I want to take a moment here because I know Mark wants to dig into this just a little bit more too, but I want to actually read from the book here for a second, actually, and this is from the ending of that story you were just telling right here too. Is the lacewing release turned into one of the first highly successful campus IPM programs in the nation. With the help of my talented and dedicated staff, we developed all kinds of innovative methods to deal with pests, plant diseases, and even weeds. We were the first college campus gardening program in the Pacific Northwest to eliminate the use of all chemical pesticides, including herbicides. By making the campus a welcoming place for beneficial insects and birds, we were able to achieve the balance of nature we had hoped for. And the SU campus, Seattle University campus, was the first in the state to be designated a wildlife refuge by the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. The environmentally friendly gardening program we developed not only helped Seattle University win several prestigious prestigious national awards, it has been written about in national publications and
Mm.
study aids. The insect release and our ongoing environmentally friendly gardening program have been highly popular with the entire community as well. Even though it looked for a while like I might lose my job, the release was so exciting, I'll do it all over again. But remember, if you try this at home, put out the eggs before too many of them hatch. Those little rascals really do hurt when they bite.
You do.
But ultimately, this point here that's made at the end of this story is really kind of how from what you did there and what you started doing in this these many decades ago really started kind of, I think, a movement in a sense of this natural way of handling and dealing with
Mm.
whether it's pest pressures or weed pressures, these sort of things, and dealing with them in a natural way. So I know Mark's got a lot of talk about that and stuff too. I'll let Mark go ahead and take over, but I just wanted to make sure I read that and kind of highlighted what that experiment really, really did.
Yeah, I mean, you were schooled. You came up in an age as you say, spray first, ask questions later. The only good bug is a dead bug. How did you find your way into this organic way, this IPM way? What was your motivation? Where had you learned this kind of approach, or what was leading you to this?
Well, I was really a lucky kid. So when I was 10 years old, I used to garden with my mom and my grandma. And by the way, Ciscoe is a nickname of mine. And I got it because the Ciscoe Kid TV show.
Are we breaking news here? Are we actually breaking news on the show? Is this actual news or is this known?
This wasn't.
Is this known?
It's not very known.
Okay, tell.
Yeah.
So my real name is Jim. Gardening with Jimmy just wouldn't have made it,
Yes.
So,
that's awesome.
So I even gardened in a sombrero. It had those cool balls that hung down the whole 9 yards. So everybody called me Ciscoe all the time.
Excellent.
And,
oh my God.
So I went down to this church. I didn't even go to this church. They were putting up signs looking for an assistant gardener on the telephone poles. And so I went down to this church and basically harassed this poor priest in charge of hiring. The fifth time I went in there and tried to get the job, it's the first time I ever heard a priest swear. He's like, all right, you little blankety blank, you got the job. Don't ever come in this office again. And when I went in and told this poor caretaker that I was his new assistant gardener, it's the first time I saw a grown man cry, But old Joe at the church, he had something happened to him in World War II. He would not touch a poison for anything. So he taught me a whole bunch of cool techniques way back when I was a 10-year-old kid. Now, I worked there for about 2 years. I was so popular by the YMCA candy machine. I was the only kid that had money, It was a pretty good job. And but he taught me things like we had flea beetles, these little beetles that eat potatoes and other vegetables. They punch billions of holes in them, and they hop like a flea when you come walking up. So they're really hard to get rid of. What he had me do, we took a piece of plywood, and he would paint heavy gear oil on the front, leaving open spots for my hands. My job was to sneak up on the plants that we knew had this flea beetle. So I'd be holding the board and I'd sneak up really quiet. And then they'd go, bah! And the bugs go, bah! I love the looks on their beady little eyes when I got them, And we'd even recycle them with the oil. But so he taught me tricks like that. You did that about 3 or 4 times. The flea beetle population went down so far it didn't cause any serious harm. And he'd have me run out with the tea water. He drank tea every morning, had this great big thing full of water. And as soon as it went to a boil, I put on my heavy mitten. He poured his tea. I ran out and poured it on the weeds out there, you know, and it smelled like steamed veggies. And it worked really good, you know. So that got my start at it. And then I actually got fired from a job I did. I was working as a pruner for this guy. And at the end of the year, he basically said, you know, in the summer, he said, I don't prune in the summer, only the winter. In the summer, I do spraying, you know, and I had never really done spraying. And so he expected me to go out with his big truck. It always had the same poison in it, no matter what bug you were going to deal with, anything. And so I said, I might be willing to do this spraying if I have some say in what goes in the truck, you know, so I'm not spraying horrible. And I want total safety equipment. And the guy said, you'll scare people to death if you wear that safety equipment. Oh. He said, no way. He wanted me to do it. And he said, you got to spray what I put in there. So I basically wouldn't do it. So I got fired. And so that, and then when I worked for another company, because I was on the commercial side before I got hired by Seattle U, and was in a big shopping center, and I was the foreperson on this crew. And then one of the bosses came and said, we're getting complaints because under this plum tree, cars are getting covered with honeydew, sort of, you know, and it was full of aphids. And I told him, I said, it is full of aphids, but there's a whole bunch of lady beetle larvae up there. He didn't even know what they were. Wow. And he said, hey, doesn't matter if there's lady beetles in there or not. You got to spray and kill those because people who own this place are really upset. And I did it, and I hated it. It felt so horrible. And so after I left that job, I just kept thinking there's got to be a better way. I became a master gardener, and I worked with this really cool woman that was really into these kind of ideas, and she kind of mentored me. Sharon Coleman, always have the highest esteem for her. So that helped me too. And then I just started thinking, I'm going to try something new. And you know what's neat though? I as the boss there, I had to evaluate all the people that work for me. And usually what happened is they ended up evaluating me. I don't know what it is, but they always tell me if I was a good boss or not. After we switched over to all this integrated pest management and became more and more organically minded, the way people evaluated me was so much better. Really enjoyed a job where they didn't have to spray horrible poisons, and you know, you got to use your head to work with nature instead of against it. Made the job way more fun for all of us. So it ended up a really fun challenge. So it was really cool. We all worked together to figure things out.
Yeah,
that's a great story. I mean, I can only imagine that's got to be one of the proudest accomplishments of your career, is to have set a major institution in motion, and then all the ripples that has had for the society in general.
Well, you know, it's funny because the university management was really nervous about this, you know, that this maniac's releasing $22,000 on a college campus and all the stuff I was doing. So they didn't like it too much. You know, one of the most famous stories is we had bald-faced hornets, and if anybody out there watching doesn't know what they are, they're big. They're almost an inch long. They got white head, sort of look like a bald face, and they got some white lines on the back, big black hornet. and they
Yeah.
make those nests out in rhododendrons and in cherry trees and against fences. And so at the university, after we got the program going, the university started kind of liking that they could advertise that we were the place that did this kind of gardening. And it made some people want to come to school there. So I had a deal with them that if there was a bald-faced hornet's nest, I could leave it where it was if it was in a back area campus, but I had to put caution tape and a sign saying warning hornet's nest, because they're extremely beneficial. You know, they eat so many bad bugs. I used to watch them coming in with big caterpillars in their mouth, bringing them into the big hornet's nest, you know. So the school went, okay, we'll let you go ahead and leave these hornet's nests, but if they're in the heart of campus, you gotta spray them. There's no two ways. So I knew there were 2 big hornet's nests right in the heart of campus, but they're so beneficial. It's so cool. I didn't want to kill them, you know. So I got the call from the administration. They said, hey, there's 2 hornet's nests right on campus. You said you'd kill them if they're in a really bad spot. Without even thinking, I said, well, I'm not going to spray them. I'll move them. And they're going, you're going to move a hornet? I said, yeah, you know. So I had no idea what I was going to do. I had a friend who raised bees. He loaned me his bee suit. It was twice my size. You know?
This is literally, I think, one of my
my
favorite stories out of the book, really. This is literally.
It was terrible. I go out. It's 1 a.m. I come to the campus. I've got this suit that's way too big for me on. And so I've got a big plastic bag that I'm going to try and put the hornet's nest in, you know, and I even brought some, I think it was some menthol or something that I was going to rub on the branch, because I read somewhere that if you cut a hornet's nest out, they'll rebuild it if they smell where it was. So, and not only that, I read hornets can actually shoot their venom into your eyes. So even if you have the net, you got to still wear goggles. So I was quite a character in this way too big white suit, carrying this plastic bag. And security came out. They saw me and they go, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to move this hornet's nest. And I thought the guy might offer to help. He said, you know what? I just remembered I got to go check the parking garage. It's 1 a.m, you know. So anyway, he ran away. So I go up to this hornet's nest, and there's 2 hornets sitting right in the exit hole, just looking. They're the guard guys, you know. So it was really scary, but I just held my breath and I went whoop around the whole nest, and the hornets came out like Pickett's last charge. The whole bag is going. I'm just like, oh my God. So I cut it off the branch, put some of that menthol on there, and now I'm going across the campus. This thing is just, and I get to the spot way in the back of campus where I'm going to put them, you know. Then I suddenly realize I have to let them out of the bag. So I still got the branch with the thing. So I sat there for about 10 minutes hoping they'd calm down, but it didn't work. They were still going nuts. So finally I went, I got to do it. I opened the bag, took the nest out, stuck it in a rhododendron. It stayed in the rhododendron, sitting in there. And I turned to start running because they were all over me. And I looked down, and the bag had trapped it. It kind of sealed up on the ground. It had trapped hundreds of hornets in there. And so I grabbed the back of the bag, started running full speed across the campus, and I ran right by this guy enjoying a nice bottle of Night Train wine. was out on the campus. He screamed and ran. I've never seen him again. So I either cured or killed him. I'm not sure which. Oh, la, la. But,
oh my gosh, I'm telling you, that was probably the part of the book where I think I laughed the most with just this image of Ciscoe in this big, huge, baggy bee suit in a bag, just running at full speed across.
Oh, it was so terrible.
I must have laughed for 5 minutes or so
Wow.
before I could put the book back up.
But you know, it's cool. The Hornets actually built that nest into that rhododendron. I did it to two of them. The other one fell out, and I couldn't pick it back up. It was too scary. And they rebuilt the nest right where I had cut it out of, and somebody else sprayed it, but I didn't. But the other one they built into a beautiful nest, and so it was pretty successful.
Yeah.
You know, Ciscoe, one of the things that's notable about your book, at least it was to me, is you admit a lot of failures and you took a lot of risks. So, you know, tell us, you know, just to name a few, like you talk about putting a boulder into your newly renovated house. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
You apparently, for the first time, admitted in public that you knocked over or bent over a telephone pole on the Seattle U campus. I mean, you almost got fired for the aphid thing. How in the world have you made this balance between risk? I mean, you're a risk taker in the things you're learning. You've killed some trees, some beautiful trees, by pruning them wrong. Tell us about that. Like, what is the balance between risk and learning in your life?
I don't know what it is, but I've always been quite a risk taker. And I love challenges, you know.
Yeah.
And, that one with the telephone pole was a wild one because there was this huge rock right in the middle of the lawn at Seattle U. And we all hated it because it was located where the bed behind it, you couldn't get the rider mower between the bed and the rock. But if we extended the bed, it would have looked really bad. And so somebody had to go back, hand mow behind the rock. Then we had to weed eat around the stupid rock, you know, and so we all hated it. I took our biggest truck. We had a little dump truck at Seattle U. I took it, chained up the rock, tried to move it, and all the truck did was go even wiggle the rock. So I determined to get it. I went out at 5 a.m. I found this big come-along in the supply department at the university. So I thought, this is going to do it. And we had pulled the stump out of the ground by tying a come-along to a really big tree. We put rubber around the tree and then put a chain around it. We were able to pull out a stump. So I thought, oh, this is going to work to move this rock. And the only thing there was these telephone poles. But I thought those must go way deep in the ground, you know. So I stuck it way down at the base of the telephone pole, tied it to that, chained up the rock. I'm sitting out there on the lawn. No one's around. I wanted to do this when no one was around in case something broke and flew and I didn't want to hit anybody. So I'm rock's not moving a bit, but the slack's definitely coming out of the chain, you know. So I'm and I'm thinking, this is weird. I'm chicka so much and that rock's not moving. And all of a sudden I see this shadow coming over. I look up and here's this telephone pole at a 45-degree angle. The wires are so tight. I reversed it. The telephone pole stayed right where it was. I quickly got the chains off the rock, threw them in the truck, got the heck out of it. Later in the day, I see the city light there looking up at the pole and figuring
what
out
happened?
How did this happen? They got it straightened out. It took them quite a long time, but they got it. And then later in the day, I'm in a manager's meeting. All the people in all these departments were all like, what could have made that telephone pole do that? I was like, I wonder if a big truck hit it or something. You know? To this day, I never confessed that Seattle, who did it. But
Now
I just imagine you.
Everybody knows now.
I just imagine you walking up to that crew at first there in the morning when you saw him, just kind of like, I wonder what happened there as you walk
That's
on by.
exactly. I never even told the guys I worked with that I did that one. Oh my God. It wasn't until years later we finally were able to get a backhoe. And then once we had a backhoe, we moved that rock. But that was one big rock. That was tough. So yeah, all my life I've kind of loved challenges, trying to figure out how to do something. But sometimes I do make some pretty dim decisions. Oh la la.
Well, makes for good stories, that's for sure, Ciscoe.
Did you ever get the rock moved?
Oh yeah, with a backhoe. Later on, because at first when I worked at CIU, we had such a low budget. You know what was the best thing to happen to me at CIU? Because they never let me try to ask for more people to work for me, and I relied on student crews to do a lot of the work. But by pure luck, I don't know how I came across this. Carnegie University did a study, and they determined the number one decision factor where parents and high school graduating students use to decide where to go to school is the appearance of the campus.
Wow.
Yep, I took that right up to the vice president. And I showed him, I said, it's hard to fill all the enrollment spots. Why don't we experiment and see if this works? And he read the study, decided he wanted to do it. When I started at CIU, there was a boss who we never saw, an old priest. It's a Jesuit college. There was two supervisors. I was one and another guy was. Another guy stayed down in the basement and worked on his car. And there was one guy that picked up paper. And then I hired 8 students. I put an ad in the school paper and said, I can only pay you minimum wage, but if you want to learn to garden, come work with me. And I got 8 great students that came and worked with me. And that's another famous story on the campus that I think is in the book. And that is that when I got there, the campus had been let go. It had been originally put in by this famous gardener named Fujitaro Kubota. It had this beautiful Japanese thing with lots of big rocks and tons of really valuable Japanese maples and cool plants, really old. And but he worked with an old priest that ran the department. That guy died a long time before. Fujitaro hadn't been there. Nobody knew what they were doing on the campus. And so when I got put in charge, well, I wasn't put in charge yet, but I took charge and I started cutting down these weed trees that were going right through the middle of Japanese lace leaf maples and stuff. These ailanthus trees, they call them tree of heaven.
Oh yeah, those things
yeah.
So and a lot of
the book A Tree in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So I started cutting these down. I got called into the vice president's office. He goes, I don't even know who you are, because I hadn't even met him hardly at this point. And he goes, you're cutting down trees all over campus. I've been getting reports of you out there. He said, we've got a landscape architect that we hired to do some work for us. You can't cut down any trees without asking his permission. And so there were 2 big catalpa trees that had been topped. They were rotting. I was a certified arborist at this time. So I called this landscape architect and say, if you'll come to the campus, I'd like you to look at these 2 trees. They're right over the entrance. They've got tons of decay up there, and these branches are going to fall out, and he comes, he doesn't climb up, of course, I don't expect him to or anything. I'd been up in the tree. And also he didn't even know what kind of trees they were. And he goes, I think you can prune these, do some remedial pruning and make these fine. They were so rotten. It was unbelievable. So the next morning, I got those 8 students at 5 a.m. We went up there, cut those trees down, chopped them into chunks, got them out of there, covered the stumps with bark or whatever we were using for mulch, wood chips. And believe it or not, I had to meet that landscape architect in the exact same spot on campus. A week later, I thought, oh God, I'm going to get fired for sure. He didn't remember they were there.
Oh my!
Oh my!
Yeah. So the end of summer, so that was my first summer, and the priest who was in charge finally decided he should quit. So I got called up by the vice president. I thought I was getting fired because I had cut so many trees down. In fact, one on campus was right in the middle of campus. It was one of those Picea pungent Colorado blue spruce. They did really terrible. They got that bug that the thing, it only had needles on the end of the branches. It was so ugly. So I took my crew up at 5 a.m. We cut it down. It was right in the heart of campus and bucked it up really quick. The truck had just driven away with all the big rounds that we had cut down from the tree, just had finished covering the stump. Father Hayes, the vice president, walks around the corner, and I'm standing there with about 6 of these students. He starts looking around. He sees the chainsaw sitting there. He goes to the students. Did he just cut a tree down here? He goes, tell me the truth now. Was there a tree here yesterday that's not here today? They're going, no, Father.
No.
Oh, God, I'm going to hell for sure.
Oh, God.
Oh,
he calls me in, and I thought I was being fired. And he goes, well, Father B quit. He goes, I want you to be the new ground supervisor. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Oops. Sorry about that. Get too excited. And so I said, wow, I couldn't believe it. I said, sure. He goes, but there's one condition. I go, what's that? I was quite a hippie then. I had quite long hair. He goes, you got to cut your hair. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. He said, all right, you're in charge, but you don't get a raise.
Oh,
I was in the department anyways. All right, I don't care. So a month later, I opened my paycheck. There's a big fat raise in there. So I went and got a haircut. So
it came around anyways.
Oh
I was going to say, you mentioned those catalpa trees. My friend's got a big one up out in front of his place, and man, they're big, beautiful trees for one. That's fine. But man, they put out these little long seed pod things, and those seedlings are the worst. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you had the experience because I'm sure they pop up all over the place, man. Those roots tap in and will drill in about a foot or two and grab a hold of the earth like nothing you've ever seen before.
Hard to get out.
You can't hardly, it takes 2-3 people sometimes to pull one of those. You might get a truck and get some just to yank a little sapling out.
Yeah, do it with a telephone pole. I'm sure it'll work.
There you go. Yeah, ratchet it up.
Oh my God.
Anyways, I got a question here that came in just a little while ago. I do want to make sure I get this here for sure too, because we got to jump in with some questions that come up anyways. And this is a great question anyways, because you kind of mentioned there, you didn't know if that one got into the book or not, but Michelle asked a little while ago too, any weird or favorite story that you had that didn't make it into the book?
Oh, geez, I gotta think about that.
Putting the pressure on, huh?
I have so many. It's like, well, I'm not sure if this story's in the book or not, but so at Seattle U, when I started working there, they had some houses on campus. So they had buildings, but they had houses. So the university, you know, the first thing that happened, they started knocking down these houses and building new buildings. The problem was that right around some of these houses and things were some really spectacular plants that Fujitaro Kubota had brought to campus.
Mm.
And I fell in love with those guys, you know, and some, like one Japanese maple, Tommy Kubota, Fujitaro's son, who was in his late 70s or so when I started working at Seattle U, he told me that one of those Japanese maples, he's positive was over 100 years old, because
Wow.
Fujitaro had got it when it was really old. So, so all of these trees, I didn't want them being destroyed. So I'd fight like mad with the president of the university to let me move them. And they had to give me money to do it. So for some of the trees that I moved were Japanese black and red pines that Fujitaro Kubota, before he left Japan when he was a young man, he went all around Japan and took seeds off some of the most famous pines in all of Japan.
Wow.
Those seeds came in his pocket in 1906 when he came to the United States. And almost every pine at Seattle U was a pine that Fujitaro Kubota had planted from seeds in his pocket. So I'm going to switch this to a different story. So one was a beautiful Mugo pine. And it was the first pine that he had planted at Seattle U. And so I had gone somewhere in a work truck. And at that time, I had a dog, a 94-pound hound dog that I brought to work every day with me. And there's lots of stories about her in the book.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's in the truck next to me. We're going down Madison Street, one of the big streets that goes by the campus. And I look over as I'm driving by the campus, and I see this big semi truck going around a turn in the heart of campus, hit the Mugo pine, knocked it over, and now he's heading down the street. And we had this thing we had a planter in the middle of the street that you had to go around. It wasn't, it was no room for a semi truck. He's heading toward that. It's got another Kubota pine in the middle of the street. And
oh my.
I slammed on the brakes of the work truck, full blast, left the door open in the middle of this super busy street. And my dog and I started running down the street of the campus to catch the guy before he ran over the other pine. I must have looked mad. There was this big, burly truck driver in there. I got up to him and he rolled down the window and he said, I'm sorry. It may have been my dog, my 94-pound hound dog, but so we managed to get him to stop. And then we actually dug that pine out and moved it farther from the road. And it's there. I just led a tour of Seattle University last Saturday to a bunch of people. And that first pine that Kubota planted is still looking great where it is on campus. So I don't think that story was in the book. I'm not sure.
No. That's a new one.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. No, yeah, so that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, it was so fun working at Seattle University. You got to go to school for free while you worked there.
Oh,
I ended
wow.
up getting a master's degree while I worked at Seattle University. You know the big problem, though?
That's great.
They were all night classes I took, and it was full of all these business guys. I got a degree in public administration because they didn't have like biology, a master degree or anything. And one of the priests I was always taking classes said, "Why don't you get a degree?" I said, "What for?" And he said, "Because if there's letters after your name at a university, you'll get more money." So I did. And I'm really lucky I did, because one of the best teachers I had was a writing teacher. And she made me rewrite one of my papers 5 times. The first time she read it, she laughed her head off and there wasn't any humor in it. So I wasn't the best. She said, I've never read more $8 words in one paper in my whole life. So I finally learned to write it myself. It was great. And I wrote for the paper for 17 years here in Seattle. But
yeah.
But the biggest problem in class was all these business people that are getting degrees. They got caught always handing me notes in class. And I'd open it up. When do I prune my Japanese maple? The teacher would be like, no more of those notes.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
That's so awesome.
Could I read one quote, Ciscoe? On that note, I really have to praise your writing. I mean, there's a lot of great essays in this book, but I gotta say, Separate Beds is my absolute favorite.
Oh, yes.
I think it's apologized, but it's got like best. Oh, I'm just gonna read the 3 first sentences, and it's just like, if this doesn't make you want to keep reading, I don't know what kind of introduction will. And the first sentence is probably one of my favorites. Here it is. If your partner or spouse is a lazy bum and doesn't like to garden, you are among the luckiest people reading this book. You have the whole garden to yourself and are able to plant whatever you want. That's definitely not the case in my house. It's like, that is a that whole essay. One, it's your relationship with your wife and your whole gardening thing. I don't think we probably have time to go all into that, but that is its own whole epic story. And it's just like, the divided beds, the separate beds, the marriage, the plant relationship. It's just, that's brilliant, man. That is so brilliant.
I think too, as well, talking in the talks that we've gotten to see and all that sort of stuff as well too. And you talk about Mary a lot. And I think those stories are really some of the best stories. And I have to agree, Mark, that was probably really one of the great ones as well too.
Well, all I can tell people is, if you're married to an expert gardener, divide the garden. It's so much cheaper than marriage counseling.
You got to do it like the old school dividing the room, right? You got to put a line right down the middle. This side's your side, this side's your side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever something comes over, we stand shoulder to shoulder, go, which side do you like the best? And I know she's bribing all those people to keep voting for her side.
It's so great. So great. Amazing. What a great book too, and so many great stories. One I wanted to actually kind of real quickly kind of touch back on a little bit too, because I kind of talked about this over the last couple of days, and really because kind of again to touching again on the insect thing too. When you're talking about the hornets, you talk about the yellow jackets, and again, I think it's just still one of my favorite imagining scenes reading the book was you running across the campus and all of that as well too, because ultimately for me, and I think that's a big thing for a lot of us new gardeners, is to really start to learn and understand how important insects are in playing a role in what's going on in our gardening, making our gardens a really healthy place. But a lot of people are like me, growing up, and I hear it from a lot of people too. They talk about bugs. Oh my gosh, no, there's no way. This is a game changer for me. I saw one post the other day was like, why didn't you guys warn me? There's so many darn ugly bugs in the garden before I got started. And I was one of those people too, a bee or especially a wasp or something like that come flying around me, and I'm wow, and I'm running like crazy. All of that, because they can be kind of freaky and scary in some senses when it comes down to it. And one of the things I've kind of mentioned and talked about in this, because they're kind of really so important to our garden, and to me, and I think a lot of gardeners that get going garden find our gardens to become really important to us. So we've got to figure a way to kind of, create a relationship. And one of the ways I found though too was kind of taking that fear and turning it into observation. So that's kind of what I did, was like, here I'm in the garden. So what I did was kind of like, instead of like running and freaking out when I saw something, I just kind of tried to switch my mind real quick to kind of like, what is it doing? You know what I mean? And then follow it around and see what it's doing and all of that. And then that's when you see it getting up under of those brassica leaves or those sort of things, and hunting down the little caterpillars and doing all of this wonderful work for us. You know what I mean? So they really are. We got to create this relationship with these really kind of scary things, you know, and you know, so I wanted to kind of bring that up because I think that's also a really important thing for newer gardeners and everything, in what you kind of talk a lot about in the book too, with the integrated pest management and all of that being really kind of an important part of our garden learning experience.
It's so fascinating. You know,
Yeah.
when you start watching bugs and see what they do, and when you get to watch a lady beetle just scarf an aphid down, you know, it's so cool. And one of the most exciting things I've ever seen are bald-faced hornets going after crane flies. Crane flies are those kind of big insects that look like a giant mosquito. They fly across my wife Mary's face at night. She lets out a shriek, you know. And, but at Seattle U and even at my house sometimes, I've invited kids over and we lie on the grass and watch the bald-faced hornets. And what they're doing, they're looking for the crane flies. The crane flies, they come out of their cocoon, they mate right away, and then they form like about, I can't remember how many eggs, like 300 eggs or something in their stomach. They're so heavy, they can only fly a couple of feet and they got to start laying the eggs. Well, the bald-faced hornets know when this happens, they're out looking for dinner. And so they're flying, hovering right above the grass. It's so fun to watch this.
Isn't it something?
And the crane flies in there in the grass, you know, waiting for her chance. So she think it's clear. Boop, boop, boop. She starts to take off. The bald-faced hornet lands on her in the air, bites her head off right in the air, right in front of you. All you hear is like, and it's all over. Bites the wings off, bites the legs off, and it's crane fly to go back to the hornet's nest for a barbecue. Oh la la, you know. Those are the kind of things that's why I love watching bugs. You know, see a spider pounce on a bug. All those things are so exciting. It's just, it makes gardening extra fun too.
Yeah. The one I'm still having a hard time with though, and I'm getting better at, and it's just because I think they're just too human-like in their alienness, are praying mantises. You know, they just move them heads like that and they can reach out and do all sorts of stuff. And but yeah, praying mantises are still kind of my I'm still working on. I've introduced them to the garden, so I love seeing them around and everything, but I'm still trying to hold on to them and handle them, and all that sort of stuff is still something I'm working on. But the fascination never ends, because it just really is kind of amazing how these little creatures, you know, live their lives, do their little things, but, you know, in a sense, doing things that really are kind of important to our garden though.
And, you know, I'm sort of an amateur entomologist, and I've been in this entomology club for many years now. And one of the interesting things I learned from working with a lot of entomologists is that in a typical back garden, there's 1,000 different kinds of insects, or I should say bugs. There's so many spiders and everything. But of those 1,000 kind, at any typical time, only about 10 are harmful to our plants or us at any given time. You could have 10,000 of one kind, that could be a problem. But, you know, so you think if you use a spray that kills everything, then what happens is you kill all the good guys, you throw the whole thing out of. So the more you could just zero in on one pest, if you have to do it, the better off you are. You know, and the more that you invite the good guys, they do the work for you. You don't have to do very much. So it's
like I say, Dan, some good healthy soil and some integrated pest management, and you're all set, man.
That's it. That's about all you need. Get a little sunshine, you know.
Yep, yep, sunshine and water. That's it, right?
Wow.
That's it. Yeah.
It's really just being willing to be part of a bigger drama, you know, to, like you say, observe it and just get fascinated with it and see how nature's already taking care of the system.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It really is fun to watch a bug eat a bug. I just love it. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like you say,
You
the
know,
spiders when they're twirling up a bug or something is always so just how they go to work. It's just the crazy stuff is interesting.
Well, here in Washington on the western side, I'm not sure about Oregon, we don't have any truly poison spiders. And we have what they call the aggressive house spider, which is this pretty good sized spider. But all the new research says they don't have a toxic bite, but the bite can get infected.
Right.
That's the problem. But I was lying in my living room petting my dog. I felt something crawling on my head, and I didn't know what it was. And then I'm laying with my head to the side. Then I see this big, aggressive house spider crawl down the other side and just crawl away. I'm like, even if they're not toxic, they're a little scary at times.
Yeah. My favorites are the jumping spiders. They got such great personality. But down here, and I'm not sure about up there, but down here we do have black widows. So I've got several widows that are around my garden spaces and all of that. But you know, they're reclusive. They don't want anything to do with anybody. They'll hide in their little spot. I don't bother with them too much, you know, and when it comes down to it, they all have their purpose.
Yeah, that's it. And I think a little bug like a black widow spider really doesn't want to take on someone our size if they have a choice, you know. If they're under attack, that's something different. But
yeah, and they have to really feel like they're deathly under attack before they'll even emit any of their venom too. So they're they can only produce so much of it, so they're very sparing in how they use it. So it has to be really life or death for them before that'll happen. And I guess they also too, you know, we haven't had recorded black widow deaths in well over decades or so. So, you know, the danger isn't really as high as they seem. It's just best just to let them do their thing, you know, just like every other bug doing its thing. Because that way, hopefully you're creating a balance, you know, and it's that balance that's important.
Yeah. And, you know, being observant, you know, sometimes you get really cool surprises. I remember one of the gardeners at SU came in and went into our little shelf and pulled out the pesticidal soap, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I said, what are you going to spray? Because each gardener had their own area on the campus. And she said, there are so many aphids. It was on a Daphne odora. She said, there's so many aphids, you can't hardly even see the back of the leaf. I said, could we go out together and take a look? Went out there. Hidden in between them, you really had to look careful, were syrphid fly larvae. And those are those things that look like bees, hover around our plants. They lay eggs, and out of that come these green, blind larvae. And they tap their head around, and when they hit an aphid, a little feeder thing comes out of their mouth, just grabs them. They suck the juice out of them so fast, it's unbelievable. In the lab, they have been timed to eat an aphid per minute.
Wow.
So they're little eating machines. As we look closer and closer, and I always carry a little magnifying glass with me, you know.
Yeah.
As we look closer and closer, there were really a lot of them. And we decided not to spray. In about a week, the problem was just about taken care of. It was really cool.
Yeah, restraint is the best. Restraint is the best spray, right?
Yeah, you betcha.
Hey, Ciscoe, I got one more kind of concluding question, and we didn't really touch. I mean, there's so many parts of your garden life and personality. We can't get to it all, but you've traveled around the world to a lot of different gardens. You've been, you know, gardening in the Northwest your whole life. You've got all these experiences. What would you say if somebody's designing a garden or setting up a garden? What are like 3 things you don't think you could do without in a garden? Like, what would be the 3 most important things you tell somebody you got to have this in your garden? What's big for you?
Okay, number one, I always tell people if you're making a new garden, start small. Pick
Okay.
a spot where everybody's going to see it, and put your hardscape in first. So get some really cool little dwarf conifers, maybe a little Japanese maple or something that's not going to get too big. Always go for something small.
Yeah.
And then people start complimenting that, and then you'll pick another spot to do it, and you'll get hooked before you know it hits you. But I think if I had to pick, I would say definitely perennials.
Yeah.
I can't
Okay.
imagine gardening without perennials because it's so doggone fun. They're always changing. You learn from them. Now, I say rare plants because I just love rare, unusual plants. There's nothing more fun than when people come over, they have no idea what this thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say that. And then I think from there, it's sort of a tie ball game, but I think either maybe fragrant plants. It's really nice to have some fragrance, maybe some cool lilies or something like that. But I guess I'd just say you got to have a lot of different kind of textures, and everything has to be in proportion. And if you do that and have fun with perennials, I don't know how you can go wrong. The only thing, you'll be poor, but you'll be happy.
That's right.
Yeah, especially if you go down that rare plant route. That'll make you poor real fast.
Yeah, the hard reality of real gardening, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. So awesome, Ciscoe. I do myself have one last quick little question for you. I mean, anybody who follows you or knows you, and we are primarily food gardeners over here, but and we know if anybody knows you, that Brussels sprouts are probably your favorite when it comes down to it. So
my wife Mary hates them.
Oh. Yeah, there you go. Right, even better reason to love them, right?
Yeah. She calls them my little boogers.
But anyways, how do you like your Brussels sprouts prepared?
Well, I think the best way, I think one reason why people like Brussels sprouts where they used to hate them. Do you remember when you were a kid? Did your parents do what mine did? They would boil these poor little guys till they screamed for mercy. You couldn't even stick a fork in them, And I think, if you roast them, they are so good. Just put a little,
garlic butter,
what you call it, olive oil on them, some spices. Oh, they're so good. But I confess, I do make something, and on one of my shows here that showed all over the place, what was called Gardening with Ciscoe, and I did a cooking segment on it every week. And I did it with this really neat woman named Lynn Villa, and she was PCC is organic stores.
Yeah.
And she was their main cook. She came up with recipes and everything. And but I do something that she wasn't too impressed. Sometimes I make Brussels sprout broccoli quesadillas. So I steam the Brussels sprouts and broccoli. I put on hot cheese on the quesadilla. Then I put those on there, and then put the top back on and put hot sauce on. It is so good. It's unbelievable. But when Lynn Villa heard that I do that, she said, "I'm not cooking with you anymore. You're done."
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I don't know if I'd really recommended it for everybody, but
The special viewer can try that one.
Exactly. Right on, right on. How special for all of us
Oh,
today to sit and listen to some great stories and a great conversation with literally, I'm telling you, if you don't have this book, it's Ciscoe
yeah.
Morris's uh
Woo.
Ooh La La. Here, I know I got a picture here real quick. There we go. So people can really see
Yeah.
that there. There we go. Ciscoe Morris's Ooh La La. You got to check out this book. You got to get yourself a copy. I've already seen that a couple of our viewers have already ordered
Yeah.
theirs.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's really awesome. So excellent, excellent. And again, too, keep the stories coming, Ciscoe. I hope you got another book
Yeah.
in you or something, too, because we'd love to hear some more of these great, great, fun stories and tales from the garden.
Oh, cool. Well, I love writing them. It's a lot of fun, and so yeah, there could be another one in the making here. I'm
Uh-huh.
definitely thinking about writing a book about attracting hummingbirds right now.
Oh,
That'll have a lot of stories in it too.
Yeah, I was gonna
wow.
say we didn't even get to tap into hummingbirds either, because I know
Yeah.
you love
Birds, we
hummingbirds, but
miss birds, but wow.
that's
Yeah,
really
they're the
great.
best.
Well,
Well,
what a pleasure. I mean, having heard you a couple of times at various garden shows and just enjoying that, such an incredible pleasure to talk to you personally in this way. So thank you so much for carving out the time for us.
Well, thanks so much. And I know I'm going to be down at Portland at Portland Home Show, I think.
Oh, I'll look for you there. I'll come say hi.
Oh, good. Yeah, you guys got to come say hi for sure. That'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely. And if not, you still speaking at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show each year?
Yeah, every year. I'm one of only 2 people that have spoken every show since it started. So my
Wow,
buddy Marianne Benetti's the other one.
Oh
So
my gosh. Wow.
amazing,
That's an unbroken record.
yeah, that's pretty
excellent.
cool. It's a lot
Wow.
of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So hopefully we'll also get to see you again up there too. But again, too, thanks for coming back and enjoying joining us here on the Let's Get Growing show. It was really a pleasure to talk to you last year, and then again to have you back here
Woo.
again this year to talk about your book and share this experience with my good friend Mark Boucher Colbert here. Just really an amazing experience for us, Ciscoe. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're just really, really super fans, and you've really
Yeah.
inspired. You've inspired us throughout your life and experiences and what you've shared with us in the Pacific Northwest. And really, I'm glad that we really got to kind of really highlight and talk about those achievements that you did at Seattle University and creating that integrated pest management and the things that you've been able to do to teach and show us in these next generations how to care for our gardens better and more naturally. And I really, really want to thank you again for doing that.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on this show. This was really fun. You guys got a great show.
Hey, Ciscoe, here's one short story. I'm the garden teacher at a Catholic grade school that's run by some sisters. So if I ever knock anything over or break anything, I'm definitely bringing your book to my administrator and say, look, Ciscoe did it for the Jesuits and he didn't get fired.
Yeah, well, if they read the book, they may fire you after that.
That is so great.
Thank you, Ciscoe. Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much,
guys.
Ciscoe. We look forward to seeing you again. Well, hopefully we'll get you back on the show again sometime real soon. It's
Great,
been a
always welcome.
real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank
All
you.
right. Take care, you guys.
Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. There we go. What a great conversation with
God,
Ciscoe. Wow, huh?
God drop. Oh my, we just, I mean, if anybody doesn't realize this yet, by now, any of the viewers, we just sat with one of the true garden greats, and not only a garden great, but a storytelling great. I mean, that, I just don't know how he could have served it up any better than right there. That was just 100% classic Ciscoe, 100% classic.
Yeah, exactly. And just again too, we were talking about like questions and how we were going to do the interview and all of that. And it was like, I think ultimately, like we said, we came up with the Ciscoe knows what he saw. He's got stories to tell us. Let's just let him tell us some stories today. And
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, did we get that or what? Just some awesome stories right straight out of this book too. And I just want to say again too, we are a book club, and this is all about reading books and talking about books, because we don't want to forget that books exist in this
Yeah.
modern world. And especially, you know, for those of us in the garden, there's so many great people like Ciscoe putting together these just amazing gardening books. And when you got a great treasure like this, full of such wonderful stories, and like I said, just these funny anecdotes and things about things going on all over, you know, in his gardening experience throughout the years and all of that. So much to learn from this sort of stuff and be entertained at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even mention some of the best ones. Like, you know, he got goosed, in his own words, by a Norwegian princess when she was giving. I'm like, that story alone is like, oh, like, what the heck? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Princess with a weeding tool. It's like, what the heck?
Or the one where literally towards the front. Actually, I like that one though too, and I was wondering, like, should we touch on that one? We talked about this. Was the bush that was it a rhododendron, I think, that was in front of the window?
Oh,
And
oh my god, that one.
I was like, oh, Ciscoe.
Yeah. So
But
there's
still, just great stuff.
I mean, we barely touched on, and you know, the thing right at the beginning of the book, this is something that I learned for the first time in reading this book, that Ciscoe's parents were vaudevillian performers,
Yeah.
and they used to come home and tell all these stories about their experiences. And he said his family was like a pandemonium of storytelling around the dinner table, and all his brothers and sisters turned into these amazing storytellers just like him. So, and in fact, the book is dedicated, and I didn't ask him about this, but it says, to the 4 survivors, the best storytellers I know. And I can only imagine that's his 4 surviving brothers and sisters who were formed in this amazing storytelling environment that the parents fostered. So, I mean, it's just, we just heard from a classic. I mean, this guy is a classic in so many ways. And to get that kind of formation and then to take it into the gardening world, yeah, I see those emojis, all those crying and laughing emojis. I mean, it's impossible. You can see why we were instantly drawn to the guy. I mean, I walked into a room, the first time I ever met Ciscoe, I walked into a room that was full of like 800 people for a gardening talk. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I had to stand up. There was no room to sit down. And typical Ciscoe, you walk into the room, you get a sheet of paper that has a list of 200 plant names, 200 slides. And he's like, this is what I'm going to cover in this presentation. By the time the thing's over, he's only on number like 15. And everybody's like,
of like 30 slides,
grasping at their bellies because they've been laughing so much. And he's like, oh, well, I mean, that's all we had time for. Sorry, we'll see you next time. It's like,
he's in a rush trying to get through it. Oh, I got to tell you this one last story. I'm
like, what just happened? I just came for a garden lecture. What the heck happened?
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, it's
why. Now everybody sees why Ciscoe's a legend.
Yeah. And I remember the first time I got to see Ciscoe in a talk years ago too. I myself, for many years, I remember I was, just before even gardening, I'm just kind of like a putter, you know, doing things and projects and stuff. So it was always great to have the AM radio on in the background. And I was always a real big AM radio listener. So
Yeah.
for years, I got to listen on the weekends to Ciscoe's gardening radio show. And you
That's
get all these
cool.
great callers who would call in and ask all these questions about different things growing on in their garden. And he'd just do this just funny. And it doesn't matter who calls in, he would have this great conversation with everybody and all that. And I think one of my favorite things about Ciscoe, though, too, and one of his sayings, I remember that in fact they play on this podcast I mentioned a little bit earlier. One of the viewers who's watching today listens to this podcast. They play this little clip of him all the time, but he would always tell people, like, if they did something, he would be like, "It was a mistake to do that." And I love that because he'd be so honest and truthful with people about stuff. And it's like, it was a mistake to do that. But I love that about him and his conversational ability just to have a great time and do all of that. So that's why really when we thought about doing this book club and we were talking about that, I knew for sure it was like, oh, Ciscoe's at the top of the list. We got to make sure that we get him in on this as we get going on this book club. So I'm so glad we did get him in, and we got just a wonderful, wonderful conversation today talking about Ooh La La from Ciscoe Morris.
And you know, he made reference to his previous book, which is called Ask Ciscoe, and that is a question and answer format, which covers hundreds of garden questions. So I highly recommend that one too.
Yeah, like his radio show. That's a book form of his radio show, basically.
Yeah, it's probably taken, like a lot of excerpts are probably taken directly from there, and he maintains the same conversational tone, very funny, but gets down to the answer for each garden question. So, you know, I recommend Ask Ciscoe, and for a totally different reason, Ooh La La. They're just both wonderful. Yeah.
I keep forgetting this. I got this little thing of drops from that podcast I listen to, and I always kind of play them out, but this one's always a favorite. Ooh La La. Ooh La La. I love it. Anyways, what a great book. What a great experience. And thanks again to Ciscoe for being our July selection of our monthly gardening book club. We've been off to such a great start to this book club now. And it's that time now too. You know what we do each and every time we get to the monthly book club, each third Sunday of the month here on the show, we announce our next month's book and do a little bit of a book giveaway. And so this next month's book is another book which is a favorite of, and again too, I mentioned this podcast I listened to called TBTL, done by a couple of radio guys from the old, and I'm sure Ciscoe remembers from the 710 days, Luke Burbank and Andrew Walsh, and they do their podcast TBTL. And I got to know about this book because another listener of that podcast, we call ourselves Tens, and so another 10 is a huge is an author of this book that I'm just a huge fan of, called Leave Your Troubles Behind. Let's see here, I've got a picture here I'm going to put up too as well for everybody to check this out. This is a book by an author called named Karen Hugh, called Leave Your Troubles Behind, and it's how to de-stress and grow happiness through plants. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to this here too, because this, you know, we live in a crazy world right now, and crazy things constantly going on all over the place. And you know, I like to kind of create a kind of neutral common ground here on the Let's Get Growing show and all of that sort of stuff. So our garden is a great place to escape from all of this sort of stuff. And that's really kind of a lot of what this book is about, is some activities and different ways of looking at our gardens and plants in a way to kind of, de-stress ourselves and kind of alleviate some of these sort of things that are kind of really weighing in on us.
Yeah, I mean, we just, you know, so many scientists and researchers tell us that that connection with nature is vital, and we know that in our hearts. So putting plants in our house, interacting with plants, it's a great way to restore that connectivity and be more human, more
Mm-hmm.
able to show up for the rest of all the other experiences of our lives.
Exactly. So, all right. So everybody who's here right now in the comments, if now again too, we have to preface this by saying this is a giveaway. As far as funds go, there ain't much here to go for a budget. So this is really kind of a USA only kind of thing. I know we have a lot of international listeners. So if you are international and you do want to participate in this giveaway, definitely jump in as well if you can cover shipping cost. That's the only kind of thing I can preface this by saying, because just put into our comments hashtag book club. So just put the word book club, all one word, hashtag book club, into the comments section right now. And we'll all give you guys a few minutes right here too to go ahead and drop that into the comments. And we will draw one of those here in just a minute or two and give away this really, really great book. I'm really excited about this book too. We did have, similar to Ciscoe, we did have Karen Hugh on our show last year as well too. So it's going to be really great to kind of have her back on the show and be able to talk a little bit more about this really great book. All right, let's see here. Okay, we're getting some folks in there too. Book club, hashtag book club, everybody there too. Awesome. So yeah, everybody too, again, this is a really fun thing. Thank you all so much, for participating and joining with us here on the show today to participate in this book club. One of the things we do like to say is that, getting the books and having the books isn't necessarily required. That's one of the great things about this book club is we're inviting these authors on with us to talk about their books and discuss their books. And sometimes that just might be the case. Maybe come in here like today. We already had a couple of people who have already bought the book today because of getting to meet and see Ciscoe. So, come and participate, if anything, in our book club and enjoy these really great authors and these great conversations.
Yeah, I mean, really, one of the things I think that distinguishes this book club is having the author present for the whole discussion. Basically, it's more of an interview. We're doing the reading and coming up with some questions, but then the author's here to just lay it out as they see fit. So it's really an awesome privilege to not just interact with their work in a book form, but then to interact with them in a live fashion like this.
All right. So it looks like we got several people in there with the hashtag book club. We'll give you one more moment here. Drop that in there if you haven't already. I'm going to put up here. Let's see if I can get this right. I'm always playing around with these things when it comes to setting all of this up here. So let's see. Did that pop up? There we go. Actually worked out really well. There we go. So hashtag book club is in the comment section. This cool thing about the StreamYard platform we use, they give us this really fun giveaway tool that'll draw this up for us. So let's get that on there, make sure that's right. Start collecting. There we go. So all right, let's draw our winner and see who is the winner of this book from Karen Hugh, Leave Your Troubles Behind. All right. What do we got? Oh, Jay's in there. We'll have to. How awesome. Michelle, winner of our book. This is awesome. This is great. Michelle's actually a 10 too. So that's a perfect match to our win. So excellent. Really glad to that you're the winner there. Congratulations, Michelle, on winning our book. And all you got to do there is just send me your information to letsgetgrowing@mail.com, not gmail.com, but mail.com. So just send me your information there to letsgetgrowing@mail.com, and we will get that book out to you here real soon. So you'll have it and ready for our next book club. But man, what another great edition of the book club, Mark.
Yeah, this was really a peak experience. I got to say, we're going to have a hard time coming down off of this, but just knowing Ciscoe's out there in the world working on more talks, more books, spreading his knowledge. It gives me a great feeling. And it was awesome to be a part of it today, just to give him a platform to tell some of his amazing stories, but also to share that witness, that he's really helped to transform a culture that's insistent on killing things and spraying things and just kind of eliminating problems, to a culture that's more attuned to nature, willing to work with it, learn natural cycles, learn about the allies that we have in the natural world, and really be in a more harmonious way. He's taken it from just an individual householder's perspective, like many of us are doing, to a whole institutional perspective, and then magnified that out into the world as people looked to Seattle U and to him for guidance on how to do this. So just really an amazing person, not only a funny storyteller and a great gardener, but somebody who's a real leader in sustainability and taking us into a better future. So really a pleasure and a privilege to be with you today, and as both super fans of Ciscoe, and then to be with our cult idol, Ciscoe Morris.
Yes, that's so awesome. Ciscoe, definitely, like you said, everything you said about him, he's just a wonderful person. And you too, Mark, my NBC here at the Let's Get Growing show. You're just a really great gardener and a wonderful personality too. And I just can't think of anybody better to co-host with me, to do this show and to have this book club with, and to have you a part of our our In the Garden segment each and every Sunday. So again, thank you to joining with me here today and being a part of the Let's Get Growing show.
It's always my pleasure to be partnered up with somebody like you, Nick. You got some vision. You're building an incredible community here, and I just feel privileged to be part of it each time.
Thank you so much, Mark. Awesome. Well, we'll catch up with you, Mark, on the next time around. So hold on in a minute here, and I'll catch you after the show. But we'll catch with you here real soon, next Sunday, for In the Garden. So, yep. Thank you so much, Mark.
Bye, everybody. Let's get reading for the third Sunday in August. We'll be doing our next book of the month club.
Let's get Leave Your Troubles Behind.
Leave them right behind. Yeah, just get that book and leave them right behind.
All right. Bye. Excellent. What a great show today, everybody, for the Let's Get Growing show. We are just moving along. Again, we're probably rolling about 15 minutes or so longer than we normally would, but we got so many amazing, awesome stories. How could we not? I could have let Ciscoe talk all day long, and there's so many more, but we also do got to let him keep and hold on to some of them too for that next great book. So we want to make sure that, that he's got plenty of those to share with us so that we could read some more about those and down the road. So really awesome again to have Ciscoe Morris with us today. And again, to look forward to the third Sunday of next month, our August selection for Leave Your Troubles Behind by author Karen Hugh. And we're going to have just another wonderful conversation with her too as well. Also, definitely go back and check out last week's show too. We did have with us Bevan Cohen. He's from smallhousefarm.com and the podcast Seeds and Weeds. Really great conversation about seed saving and old methods. He wrote a book called oh boy, let's hope it comes back on here. There we go. Looks like we had a little glitch there. Anyways, but he wrote a book, The Heritage Pantry, some old methods to preserving food. So really great book that he wrote there. That was a great conversation with him. And then last Sunday, every second Sunday of the month, we have all your garden questions answered with Master Gardener Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel. So that was a great, fun conversation with him too as well. So go back, check out some of those shows, check out some of all the other great episodes here at Let's Get Growing. I want to thank you all so much for being a part of this show today. And really look forward to seeing all of you next time around on next week's show. So we'll see all of you next Saturday.